The Mariners win a game, but for some reason, a loss looks more promising than the win itself. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the series analysis episode of the Seattle Baseline Podcast. My name is Julian Smith, and I'm with Alex Hong. Well, Alex, we went to Yankee. Well, not we, but the Mariners went to Yankee Stadium, and they lost the series. Second game, they lost the game. At that point, the series was lost, but I was thinking the Mariners offense was looking really promising. And maybe the difference in approach could be the difference maker that takes the Mariners to more wins. But in the third game, Mariners score one run yet again. And so we're back to square one on runs. Yes, we were facing Max Fried, so maybe or not just maybe that had a lot to do with it, but I'd I'd say it's still really low. One run in two of the three games is really low.
Yeah, the hit total was 17, right, in 3 games, which is really bad. That's less than 6 hits a game. And a lot of it was on that second game. And that third game, even, we only scored in the second inning. And if it wasn't for Logan Gilbert's amazing start, right, along with, Bizardo, Ferrer, and Munoz closing it out, we would have lost that game. Fried had a good start, right? He only went 5 innings, but he gave up one run. It wasn't actually, yeah, it wasn't too bad. But, at that point, it's like this win didn't feel that inspiring to me, right? This is a team where our pitching, I'm pretty confident in for the most part, right? I feel a lot better about our pitching, at least, than our offense. And our offense didn't do anything in that third game, despite winning, to prove to me that this is a sustainable effect. That third game we won is not a sustainable result, right? We're not gonna, how often are you gonna hold the team to 0 runs? And that's basically what we need to do in order to win the game. So, I mentioned in the last episode how I needed to see something, right, in this series to make me hope, and I saw nothing. There's nothing I saw because even when the offense didn't play that bad in the second game, we had that bullpen. So there's so many problems with this team, and it looks like it hasn't been solved.
Well, one thing that I will point out, and well, before I get there, actually, we want to get to some news because Colt Emerson, shortstop, has been moved down to AAA and has been replaced with Brock Rodden, who's coming up from Tacoma. I think this is a pretty reasonable move. Cole Emerson hasn't been playing that well recently, and that's a trend. That's a trend that happens with almost every new guy that comes in. Cole Young did it last year. He didn't play the postseason because of it, and I think Cole Emerson's going to come back next year, and he'll be similar to what Cole Young's doing this year, where he's breakout season. He's starting to play like the big infield prospect that he is, and that's where I see Cole Emerson being next year. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, I think that the fact that he played as good as he did at the start and then fell off when the pitchers started to have a scouting report on him, that's a reasonable transition to the big leagues, and I think it was a good strategy to put him back in Tacoma and test Brock Rodden.
Yeah, and Emerson is a guy who had that really hot start. And if you remember last year, it was very similar with Cole Young. Cole Young had that hot start, then he became bad, right, for the rest of the year, to the point where we didn't even play him in the playoffs, right? Emerson just reached that point a little earlier where he was good at the start, then he was bad. So we just gotta hope that he can get some stuff together in AAA. He has an entire offseason knowing he has been to the MLB and has experience in the MLB to where he can turn things around. Because if he produces what Cole Young has produced this year, we're in good shape, right? And this is Cole. And remember, Colt Emerson is young, right? He is not like some rookie who's 26-year-old where you kind of need something to happen. He's only 21 years old. He only started being able to legally drink less than a month ago. So for him, in his case, it's like I'm willing to give it some time. And I think moving him down is good in this case. And we could get someone else to get that experience up there because it's not going to improve his development if he's just going to continue struggling in the major leagues. And just remember, not every player is like Juan Soto, who's amazing right away, right? A lot of these players, even like Mike Trout's a pretty common example brought up where he wasn't that good in his rookie year. So this doesn't mean Cole Emerson's a bust or he's a failure, right? It's just a natural thing that often happens with these prospects.
Yeah, and we're bringing up a guy in Brock Rodden who's 26 years old and is finally having a year where his slugging is matching the level that AAA wants to see him before he gets to the big leagues. He every year he's gotten a little bit better in his overall statistics. His OPS has risen from the 810 that it was last year to 850 this year. And even though the on base is slightly down, the slugging is way, way up compared to last year. And I think that this type of player, especially because the trend that Cole Emerson had, that Cole Young had at the start of their major league careers, they were good before the scouting report came in. I think that Brock Rodden can be good before the scouting report comes in. I I don't know how he's going to be after that, but hopefully JP Crawford is back to fill that role. I think that this is a move where they're saying, hey, JP's out right now. Let's get Brock Rodden in. Let's make sure that we have a guy that's going to produce for us in the meantime.
Hmm. Totally agree. And I think we should move on, right, and continue to talk about what happened in the game. So,
Yeah.
right, we demoted Emerson, right? There's a few other players that need to be talked about, right? Because we demoted Emerson because he wasn't performing well, and we got a lot of other players who aren't performing well, which is contributing to this Mariners downfall, I'd say. One of them is Brendan Donovan, and now he just came back, right? He was back very recently, and he doesn't look the same. And I think we all expected that he wasn't going to end up very good right now, and it sucks because how good he was at the start of the year, Julian.
Um, well, with Brendan Donovan, it just goes back to one thing. He is not fully healed. When players go on injury, there's the point of the recovery where you're recovered enough that you're not going to get injured again. You can play the sport again, and then there's fully recovered. Brendan Donovan is clearly not fully recovered, and he's not turning through the ball like he was at the start of the year, and that's why he looks late on every pitch. That's why he's cheating on the fastball. If you look at the second to last game, he will swing. He swung over a changeup, like he swung at where the fastball would have been, but it was a changeup, so he swung right over it. That's something that you never see from a guy like Brendan Donovan who has an elite eye because he still has it. He doesn't swing at pitches outside of the strike zone. He clearly knows what a strike looks like. He's just not able to time it up because his body's not allowing him to swing at a pitch that he knows he can swing at. Pitches that he was crushing at the start of the year, he's not able to swing at this year. After now that he's back from injury, and so I I don't know with injuries and stuff. I don't know really how the recovery stuff works. I don't know um, if this is procedural where maybe because he's playing his stiffness starts to fade a little bit and he starts playing well again. I don't know that. But at this point I can say that Brendan Donovan is not ready to play in the major leagues, and the fact that they rushed him back from Tacoma, I don't think was a great strategy, especially because he was batting under 100. He's not batting at all right now. He's not able to hit the ball. He is fouling pitches off late, off to the push side only, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't look ready to go because of, like you said, he was struggling in Tacoma. And I think the Mariners have just done a terrible job with his injury in its entirety. He was on the 10-day IL forever. And at that point, you should just put him on the 60-day IL, right? I would have rather them be conservative with him than like hopefully optimistic and just trying to, it's just like baiting the Mariners like fan base on like, oh, is this guy gonna come back soon? Looks like no, but he's on the 10-day IL, right? So just unfortunate there. Not his year, I guess. And it's partially why the Mariners haven't been good this year, right? It's just these players have been super underwhelming. Another guy is Cal Raleigh, who he had a quote, I think, after Tuesday's game, maybe, where he was like, he took accountability for what he was doing. He was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm terrible. I've been awful. And for his words, yes, I agree. He's been really, really bad. This is beyond bad. This is like, this is like one of the worst catcher years I've ever seen. Or actually not the worst catcher year, but it's on the bottom of the list, which is crazy because last year everyone had Cal Raleigh ranked as the best catcher in the league. Now, this I don't even think I don't even know where people would rank him because it's 1 year, right? And he had such a good year before. I actually don't know where people would rank him. But in terms of performance this year, off this year alone, he's probably like 25th.
You're being very generous on that. I'd put him at 30th this year. He's clearly been one of the worst offensive catchers in the league. Maybe defensively he earns some points back there, and your 25th might be in play. But in terms of batting, he has um he has some power. I mean, obviously he's hitting homers, but there's no doubles. There's no real plate discipline. But that changed in the second game of the Yankee series, and that's what I was actually referring to in the opening line when I said that there was something interesting that I saw in the game that we lost. It was Cal Raleigh. He had the plate discipline that we saw in last year. The Cal Raleigh, like if you go back and watch that game over again, the Cal Raleigh that played in the second game is the Cal Raleigh that we saw last year, the one that almost won MVP. That Cal Raleigh played from the left side. From the right side, it's a completely different story. He's still swinging and missing at everything. But from the left side, he, in his first two plate appearances, he walked and then he hit. In those two plate appearances, he swung at maybe two pitches. And one of those swings ended up being a blasted 100 plus mile per hour line drive over the shortstop. That's what I like to see from Cal Raleigh. The plate discipline. If that Cal Raleigh can come back, then the Mariners really get a valuable piece back because he's not been the same. That Cal Raleigh was the Cal Raleigh that played last year.
Mhm. Totally agree. Another guy I think we need to talk about, and I know we're being very negative in this episode, but I mean, with how the Mariners are playing, there's not much praise I can give them, right? I'll give Gilbert and the bullpen on the last game their praises. They dominated that game. But a
Mhm.
guy who has not been dominating has been Bryce Miller, and he's been our worst pitcher for the last month, I'd say. You can agree with that, Julian?
Oh, absolutely. For over a month, he's been our worst pitcher. He's I think it's a matchup between Road Brian Wu and Bryce Miller. But Road Brian Wu did his job. He went 5 innings, 0 earned runs this time. So now it's on Bryce Miller. He hasn't been the same. I don't know if it's fatigue. Actually, Alex, you were talking to me. I think it was we were calling during the season sometime, and you were talking to me about what you saw in Bryce Miller. So what can you tell us like what you were thinking with Bryce Miller?
Yeah, I mean, if it was with the velocity dip, I mentioned that in one of the episodes I did myself, where I basically isn't, and it's basically true, right? With Miller, you can see that he's a guy who suffered a lot of injuries in his career, right? He's a guy who I just think won't ever be fully capable of finishing a year. He had that really good start of the year, which he was fresh, right? And then he started deteriorating because his velocity isn't as good. And I think with Miller, we gotta, in the offseason, think about a way that we have to admit, okay, Miller's not a workhorse number one type of guy, but how can we adjust his pitching style maybe in a way to where he can, be a little more sustainable, right? I think they kind of did it with Emerson Hancock. He had a kind of a different issue where Hancock just honestly wasn't. He had a lot of stuff and it wasn't going very great for him, but he was able to tune in at least a few of his pitches to where, and he changed stuff up to where it was a lot better this year. I think we got to I think Miller needs a complete reroute because the way I've seen it, the last like month and a half is more or less the result of what we were trying to do with Bryce Miller, where we were trying to have him, and Mariners fans, we could take accountability for this one because I think actually the piggyback with Miller turns out to be, that's what their intentions were good there to limit
Mhm.
Miller because of the injury. And, that's actually something I kind of agreed with, even though a lot of people were against the piggyback. If you remember, the
Yeah.
Julian and I personally was against it because there was no consistency. But with the Miller limiting the innings thing, I wasn't actually too much against that, despite him performing well. And it looks like if you stretch him out too much, this is the result you get. So it just sucks with him in that regard.
Yeah, and he's clearly hit a wall. He in his last six starts, he has a 6.12 ERA and a 1.52 whip. That means that he has 1.5 batters on base per inning. That's ridiculous. That's way too many batters on base. And that's basically what Brian Wu was doing on the road for a long time this season. I I don't know what it is. He just maybe it's just the velocity dip, but I don't think that's it because the velocity dip doesn't make you that bad so instantly. And maybe it's if it's the velocity dip, the possibility is that because his velocity is down, all of his breaking pitches are easier to get to because there's no velocity to worry about. But other than
Hmm.
that, I really can't see what's going on with Bryce Miller because he was upgraded when he came back from injury, and all of a sudden, right now he's not the same. And I think with the piggyback, I think you're absolutely right. I think that on paper it looked horrible, but when we take a deeper dive now and we look at it from the standpoint of what's going on now, the extra rest he was getting and the innings count actually might have been the right choice. So I will eat my words on that one. I think that the Mariners were making the right choice, and I wonder what the Mariners are thinking now that clearly Bryce Miller is almost unplayable in the last six games.
Yeah, he's been a disaster. And it really shows how good he was at the start of the year because his ERA right now is 3.39, which is if you only look at the last six games, you're like, you're wondering if they changed the formula for ERA calculation because they're like, there's no way it could be that low. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely our weakest link, I think, in our pitching staff right now. But Julian, I think we need to talk about the Astros series. And this is a series to where it's crucial for the
Mhm.
Mariners if we, I honestly think the only way we could save this season is a sweep. And I know a sweep is hard to ask for, but realistically, if we just win two of three, it's not going to do anything. We're 5 games back in the West and we need to get some make up some ground here. And if we lose this series or get swept, I think we can officially say it's over. There's no way I see this happening because we still got a hard August schedule. And I know we talked about the September schedule being easy, but like what have you been seeing? If we can't beat these Astros, then how are we gonna be the best team in the West?
And that's very true. I think yeah, you need to sweep them. But at the same time, the sweep is going to be really hard because this is not the same Astros team we saw at the start of the season that we did sweep in a 4 game series. The Astros that we saw there had a horrible pitching staff. No Hunter Brown, nobody that was pitching anywhere near a 3 ERA. That's That's the pitching staff that we faced last time. Now we're facing three guys that are under four. So all in that three range. The first one we face is Peter Lambert. This is a guy that was honestly unplayable for the majority of his career at the Colorado Rockies. Goes to Japan and all of a sudden comes to Houston, and he's recreated himself. He reinvented himself. Now he's almost at that all-star tier, and he's in the last 7 games he has a 2.29 ERA, and throughout the season 3 ERA. That's what a good pitcher looks like, especially with the last 7 games. He has the track record to say that he's been good for an extended amount of time. He doesn't go a lot of innings, but he gets a lot of strikeouts because he gets a lot of swing and miss. The only way to beat Peter Lambert with his 8 pitch mix at this point is to beat him at 0-0 and beat the fastball at 0-0. Because if he gets to 0-1, now he's throwing everything out of the zone and you have to go a little bit more defensive. It's kind of like the way that Corey Seager likes to play is the way that the Mariners should be playing this, where he's aggressive at the in the first pitch, but then a little bit less aggressive in everything else. That's kind of how I want the Mariners to play against Peter Lambert. I think there's a chance. I think that if they can stack up walks against Peter Lambert, that's the way that they can beat him. Also, in the first pitch, he likes to go four-seam fastball. And so if they can punish that four-seamer in the first pitch, they have a chance. Strategically, it's the first pitch. That's the only pitch where they have a realistic chance to beat this guy. All the other pitches, there's 8 pitches in the mix. And even though some of the pitches are much less likely, like 0.5% on the curveball, you still can't forget that that's in the arsenal. And so four-seam fastball, first pitch, you got to get him there.
Yeah, with him, it's like he has realistically, there's only 7 pitches you need to worry about because that curveball you mentioned, he hardly ever throws it. So let's take that out of the equation. He has 7 pitches he can throw, right? That you expect he probably can throw in a game. And it's interesting because none of those pitches are that good. In my opinion, like they're all like decent pitches. It's not like anything that's like outstanding, right? At least this year, nothing has been that good. It's just the fact that you have so many different pitches is hard as a hitter because it's like, oh my God, there's so many things I have to worry about, right? So that's honestly kind of what makes him hard with the velocity, or not with the velocity, with the variety. So I think your idea is decent. If you hone in on the fastball, then maybe you can make something out of it because that fastball he's throwing isn't even that good. It's okay. It's not like an amazing fastball, but it's like an okay fastball. Right, so that's the way I think we gotta go about it with Lampert. And it sucks because if we do fail, then he's gonna throw a complete game because we're trying to do damage on the first pitch, which isn't always the best thing to do. But I think with a guy like him, that's kind of the approach you need to take. And if that game is a game where he decides he's dealing and that's his game, then maybe we can adjust the approach. But if it's a game like how it usually is, where his pitches aren't even that great, to be honest. And according to like all the savant metrics I see, they're not that good. It's just he has the variety, which is why he's been good this year.
Variety's great. And if your batter is thinking of a million things, they're not going to be able to hit the ball. They're not see ball, hit ball is not really the formula when it comes to pitchers that have 8 pitches. But see ball, hit ball works if he's throwing a fastball and he throws the fastball a lot on the first pitch. I want them to attack it. And then I want them to lay off on a lot of the pitches. If it's 0-1, I want them to lay off. I think that Peter Lambert is going to throw a lot of balls after first strike, and that's something the Mariners can target. And so there's a clear strategy to beat him. It's just that if Peter Lambert decides to change it up, then that's a tough strategy. That's a tough game. They need to adjust to. they're also playing Hunter Brown in the last game, and they also play the Astros offense, and they have been the Astros offense is the part of the team that really beats everybody because Jordan Alvarez and everybody else. So I'd say the Astros are the better team going into this series, but the Mariners need to grind it out. The Mariners need to win this series. If they can sweep, they're really back into the race, but they need to at least win the series or else they're completely out of it.
Yeah, gotta watch out for guys like Jordan, like you mentioned. Cam Smith has been playing really good in the last like half a month or entire month, I'd say. He's been really, really good. Pena's always good, and our old friend Taylor Trammell has been putting it up with the Astros. I gotta say, I've been looking out for him, but he's been doing pretty well. Doing a lot better than he did here, per se. So I guess good for him.
Let us know what you guys think. Can the Mariners actually beat Houston this time? Yeah, let us know. There's not really any other questions. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our beautiful faces on YouTube. Check out our Instagram. And as always, go Mariners.
Go Mariners.